Hello, Internet peoples. Between you and me, you should be outside playing in the sunshine instead of watching this bullshit.
So this is Louis, and I will attempt to make this commentary happen. As it always is, as the five-take man, I struggle to just get through a commentary. One where I know what I want to say, and in which that there's plenty to say. If I wanted to, I could make this an hour long, and I don't. I want to make this, 20 minutes. But I could make this an hour. It's going to be about this tweet from the GOP, because despite what you might think, there's actually a lot going on here. And so I want you to think about each of these sentences, whether this is just, a straight-up truism, where there's nothing more to it, or if there's actually a lot going on with each one of these sentences, and, how much is required, how much is just assumed in this, and how much could be said about each one of these things. So let's go through these sentences. Immigration makes America diverse and extraordinary. But without a secure process, our country, government, and taxpayers can't keep up with the masses of people coming in illegally. President Biden stopped construction of the wall, which has been crucial to enforcing our laws and legal entry. Each one of these sentences, I could spend an entire hour explaining the problems with each one of these sentences of, from one, starting from the very last. President Biden stopped the, construction of the wall. Oh, was it just him the first 2 years of Trump's presidency? Really? Is that what we're going to argue? That it was Biden in 2020 that stopped the wall? Not the GOP. Not them at all. But just Biden. Okay. Which has been crucial to enforcing our laws and legal entry. So we're not disputing legal entry, which Trump actually cracked down on thanks to COVID, which I can't imagine the GOP supported. Our laws, sure, but legal entry. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that the point of the wall? Just that issue. Just that. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I'm just mistaken. Going back, one. But without a secure process, our country, government, and taxpayers can't keep up with the masses of people coming in illegally. Oh, is it just that? It's just the illegal immigrants that are a problem. Oh, I guess I'm just mistaken again. Once again, I'm just caught up, and I have to put up my hands and say, oh, I guess I'm just wrong. I guess I just wasn't thinking. That it comes down to illegally entering the country. It's not the record number of fucking paper Americans that we currently have in this country and the disharmony, the chaos that has directly resulted from that itself. Not the illegals that are here, however many, 30 million, whatever it is, but the 40-something million of legal paper Americans that we have here. That isn't in any way an issue. That isn't in any way a problem that pretty much the gist of the party has. I know that there is some polling that disputes this for the right, of how many people of the right see this as an issue, and I have had libertarians say that they're more concerned with illegal immigration than legal immigration, but the fact is that I've never met a Republican, like an actual self-described Republican, who hasn't viewed immigration itself in total as an issue and an important issue. I've never met one in my life that has not seen that as an issue. It's only been the sort of bourgeois libertarians who are softer on this. And even still, they do say it's an issue, but it's more towards the illegal immigrants than it is the legal immigrants. However, they're still at least willing to acknowledge this as an issue. And they're not overly dismissive of the people who would be more restrictive towards legal immigration. They don't even say that they're against that. And it's because I think that a comment like this is unpopular on the right, especially, getting to the first sentence in this tweet, which is, immigration makes America diverse and extraordinary. Well, that is a controversial statement, to say the least. You would imagine that 2016 never happened, that Trump was never president, because this was something that was brought up consistently, not just by Trump, but by the base. You know, we can say that it was framed at many points in terms of illegal immigration, but in large part, immigration itself was made an issue in the United States. And I would say that plenty enough Republicans, just based on first-hand experience, have a problem with legal immigration, the rate of it, and the fact that we've had half the fucking world immigrating to our country and making it worse. Is it that everyone has made the country worse? No. I'm sure that we can find plenty of immigrants to this country that have, in fact, in some ways, maybe in some slight, small ways, bettered the country. But when you look at the issue in terms of totality, I don't know if I could say that America is better today than when it was when I was a kid, even when you had, you know, race riots and fucking mass violence in the country. It feels like today that we live in a worse country overall, a divided and rootless country that doesn't believe in itself anymore. The kind of malaise and nihilism that's in Europe, it seems like we have that in the United States too. I would argue that our culture is incredibly weak, and I have done in the past, but I would like to hear the argument to the opposite of that. I'd like to hear the argument from someone other than a progressive who's like, well, I think the culture's strong because every corporation on earth just reflects my view. I don't really think that's the culture. If you look at what is actually American culture, it seems like we're kind of in a tailspin, in a decline that is rapidly progressing and that shows no sign of slowing down. If there's one thing that I think is worse in this country other than, let's say, polarization or something like that, which people speak about, I think the health of our culture is significantly worse. I do think that immigration has played a certainly significant part in damaging our culture. It's not alone, but I would say that that's in part one of the problems we have, is all of these transient paper Americans that we now have that have nothing to cling to and nothing to, adapt to in this country. They're just kind of here and doing their own thing, and it's not really working, if you ask me. The reason why I mention this is not just the first incendiary statement, which is, diversity being a strength, according to the Republican Party. I've talked about this before. I've heard Kevin McCarthy and others repeating this, that, diversity is our strength, like just straight up Trudeauian sort of shit. Is it from him? Is it from the other politicians I've heard it from? Is it from whatever fucking bourgeois, libertarian faggot that wrote this tweet who works for the GOP? Is that who I should be blaming? No. It's the people behind the scenes. It's the intelligentsia that are writing the script, that are sending out these memorandums, that mention this, say these buzzwords, say these phrases when you speak. For those of you that are more adept at being political junkies, you should be able to detect when a memorandum has been sent out. And that is because you will hear the politicians, the representatives for the party, the officials of the party, using the same phrases all at once, and doing so in repetition, saying the same phrases repeatedly in a conversation or a speech. And they do so in unison, usually in a short span of time. All these different people, all using the same words, the same phrases. It's referred to as talking points, but what it is a memorandum from the party saying, this is what we're going to touch on today, or for the next week, or however long. Say these phrases, include these phrases, and they try to work them in to a conversation that they have or a speech. They do an interview, they mention this. They go to the floor of the House, they say this in a speech. It's a part of politics that is done with intention that I don't disagree with, that I'm not here to contradict it, but I am here to say that it is done in so many ways poorly, because most politicians are not passionate. They are not passionate about these things. They're being handed talking points. They're not passionate about what is written. So when they say these things, it comes off as awkward and always incredibly inauthentic because they don't actually believe these things. And even when you can see politicians on the floor slamming the podium, getting angry, their passion is so insincere that it is boring. It is boring watching that. It makes you feel more bored watching insincere, feigned passion for something that quite obviously these people do not, they don't represent these views and they don't believe in what they're saying. It's awful. Moreover, you need to know your base. I'm sure most of you listening to this would say to me, well, Louis, this is what the donor class wants, so this is what the party's putting forward. But the problem is that if they made this specific to, legal immigration, okay, that the powers that be, the donor base, wants the flood of cheap labor to continue, I would say, well, you're right about that. I'm not even going to contest that at all. You're right. That is the primary source for this kind of bullshit. But immigration makes America diverse and extraordinary? Nah. That is coming from the intelligentsia of the party, which is why I shit on them multiple times. And I had people give me shit in a video I did where some people gave me shit about that. Some people on the Nick Rekieta stream gave me shit. People are saying, well, we need the intelligentsia. And it's like, well, an intelligentsia that just uses the concepts of the left, like they just accept whole concepts coming straight out of the left, why not just vote for the Democratic Party? If this is the argument, that immigration itself intrinsically is a good thing. It's not just a moral thing, but it is a good thing for the nation. If that is the case, if that concept is just true, okay, saying that's just a truism, why the fuck aren't we voting for Democrats? Why shouldn't I vote for a Democrat? So this doesn't come from the donor base. Donor base just wants cheap labor. They don't give a fuck how they get it. This kind of statement comes from the intelligentsia, which I believe is not fit for purpose and hasn't been for a fucking decade, if not perhaps longer, you can argue. But regardless of how long it has been, it is not fit for purpose, because these are the kind of arguments that just beg the question of, if this is true, this is a true statement, why wouldn't I then vote for a Democrat? Because this is the source of this talking point. It's a self-defeating statement, and it is damaging. It is a damaging thing to say for our party. It is not productive for us. This is the kind of statement that should never be used, because the source of it is our opposition. It is the other party. That is the source of this statement. And so, from just the position of political realism, of realpolitik, it damages us. It makes us look worse, not just to our base, which disagrees with the statement, but to the person who's in between, the neutral voter or the independent, the ever sought after independent. If they're questioning who they should vote for, and we're both saying the exact same fucking thing, why would you go with the clone or the cheap imitation rather than the real McCoy? Everyone knows, in this case, it is going to be the left wing. And what? You think that this is the make or break issue? That this person is like a frothing at the mouth, anti-abortionist or pro-lifer? But you say this shit on Twitter, and that's going to win them over to vote for us? Who are you kidding with this? With that said, my point is, we need a change-up in the party within the apparatus itself, not just, the politicians even, okay? Because they're just saying these words. They're being sent these memos, and they're reading off these talking points. The problem is the apparatus. It's the party. New politicians, primary people, sure, but as well fill the void of the party. Where people that write this kind of shit, not the guy running the account, it's the person that's writing this and sending it to the person running the account that is the problem. It's who's coming up with these phrases and these ideas, these concepts, who's forcing these things onto the representatives and the people just representing the party. Those people within the party are the problem, or at least one of the problems that the right has. And it's serious. This is a very, you'll notice I'm not joking around, even though I could be. I'm taking this dead seriously because I think it is a dead serious issue. This is not good, and it is not a productive thing for our party. It hurts our party to say these things. I'll highlight an example that I think is analogous in a decent way, which conveniently enough has been something I've been watching just out of boredom, and that is Gordon Ramsay, who's a celebrity chef. A lot of his shows, other than just him straight cooking and cooking with other chefs, are shows where he goes to people's restaurants or businesses and tries to figure out why they're not working, why they're dysfunctional, why they're losing money, what's going on with these restaurants, why aren't they successful. He'll go in and try to provide some kind of diagnostic as to what is wrong. And, you know, in about 98% of the episodes of all these different shows, it is the owners of the business that are at fault for what is going wrong. They are the source of the dysfunction and why the businesses are losing money. There's a very, very small number of them where they're just in a bad area and they just don't have a customer base to buy their food, even if it was a good restaurant, so they're kind of fucked either way. But a very, very, very large number of the places he visits are, you know, the problems they have are due to the owners themselves. I will play you a clip that I watched this morning that I thought was a funny bit from one of his shows.
You said earlier that it needed more onions, okay? We responded by putting the onions in there so they had more of a bite to it.
It's raw. What's the matter with you? We send that out there, it's gonna come straight back.
What do you want to hear? That I
Take it off, Joe!
take the menu off the menu?
86 it! Save whatever little reputation you got left. Man! Surely you got a bit more respect than that. I'm trying to reason with you, Joe.
I get it.
Fine.
I get it.
Fine. But I am not here to show an idiot you can't put fucking raw onions in an onion soup. I can't teach you that. That's called common sense. That in your tiny mind is not common. Pardon? Come here, you. Should we put raw onions in a caramelized onion soup? Tell him!
No.
Thank you. You've got talented staff to tell you that. Ask your chef.
The point of the clip is that you're dealing with someone that is thoughtful in terms of conducting themselves. They realize that it requires passion and concern when trying to be a professional, that you need to think about the not just the quality of what you're producing, but the way in which you're doing it, how you're doing something. You have to think about that. And I would say that that's a good example of a quality Gordon Ramsay has, is a level of thoughtfulness, that he tries to do his best in what he does, and that's what he wants others to do. And so often, as it is when it comes to looking at dysfunction that he finds, that carelessness, thoughtlessness, like that is one of the big issues that he runs into, you know, constantly, other than like stubbornness or laziness. It is just a level of thoughtlessness and carelessness in conduct. To me, that's what I see. That's what I see with this kind of tweet, with this kind of conduct from the GOP. It's not just this tweet. I've seen this said a bunch of different times, even in the last year, just a bunch of times said by a bunch of different politicians on the right, where it's not just insincere or lazily said, but it's not thoughtful. Like, there's nothing in this that makes me think that there was much thought put into it. It was, well, we got to have something. Well, let's just borrow a concept from the left and just run with it. There's no care put into this. No one is sitting down and seriously coming up with ideas like this. This is just, it's shit. And it's shit in a way that it doesn't help us. It's counterproductive for our interests, even just out of a party, Not just the conservative movement and my ideals and my politics, blah, blah, blah. It is the party. This doesn't help the party. And if it does, man, you got to give me that argument, because I simply don't see it. Especially now, where the GOP is, you shouldn't be saying shit like this, even if you believe it. Because my question for you is, why the fuck are you a member of the Republican Party? Do you really believe this? Why? Explain it. I've seen conservatives argue shit like this, but when called on it, they crumble. They have no argument. They can't defend their position. And so it makes me question whether you actually believe it. You know, if you're not willing to stand there and give a level-headed argument, you know, even if it is just based on mafifis, how I feel, my opinion, I have not even seen that in terms of this kind of argument. When it comes to immigration, whenever people that feel opposite to this, and I'm one of them, respond and say, well, you're wrong, here's the reasons, I think, we say whatever. The people that are on the opposite side, that aren't leftists, that claim to be conservatives or right-wing or whatever, they just fold. The only exceptions I can think of are total ideological dogmatists, like the anarcho-capitalists, the libertarian types. They'll come right out and say, oh, government and state, and restrictions, free trade of goods and all this shit. They have their ideological hang-ups for why they're not in favor of borders. But even someone who is fairly ideological, like, let's say, Styx Hexenhammer, even on this issue, it's one of the reasons why he isn't a so-called minarchist, is that he understands that in order to have a nation, it requires that you have borders. If you don't have borders and citizenship is just whatever, you simply don't have a nation. The prerequisite to having a nation is having a people. Okay? A border must exist. Citizenship must mean something. Without it, there is no nation. It's just an economy, and fuck that. Fuck libertarianism, fuck anarcho-capitalism. Fuck you. Get out of this country. Go start an island somewhere and get raped and murdered by a bunch of fucking pirates, okay? Go do that elsewhere. If you want to start some fruity fucking commune, a right-wing commune, they're libertarians, if you want to go do that somewhere in the world, then go do it. Makes no difference to me. But the fact is that America is a country. We are a nation. We have borders. We have citizenship. It matters. This isn't your laboratory to conduct stupid, fruitless experiments in. Experiments that are doomed to fail. And I say that in acknowledgement that, as always, libertarians can be right in many ways about the economy. But when it comes to society, man, it's just, I don't need your fucking bullshit ideology and hedonism. Just fuck off. Seriously. It's one of my increasing frustrations is the libertines of the left and the libertarians of the right, where consumerism and hedonism, like that's culture. Yeah, I don't think so, guys. How about you fuck off with that? Come in the room when we're talking about the economy, but otherwise fuck off. Seriously. It's increasingly frustrating to me. You would think that this country is in a bad enough state. But apparently to the libertarians, the eternal libertarian, no, we just got to keep going down. Got to just keep going down. If we can't get changes in the economy that the libertarians are right about, well, then we just got to we got to turn our country into fucking Gomorrah. And I'm sorry, but I'm not on board. You can fuck off, honestly, with it. The issue is that we don't have the smartest chefs, or owners, I guess. But we'll stay with chefs as the metaphor. In the kitchen. We don't have smart people running the party. We have ideologues, and we have people devoid of ideas. It's not very difficult to keep the attention and the affiliation of Team Red boomers. It's very difficult, really, to alienate the Team Red boomers. The people who tie, the GOP, being a Republican, to their personal identity. The people that do that, when you alienate them, which, as far as I can tell, the GOP has successfully done, in some ways to our favor, our side, I mean. It's difficult to do that, and yet they've somehow managed to do that. When you fuck up that bad, you would think that it would be in some ways a humbling moment to you, that you might think, what exactly are we doing wrong? But such as it is, and in the case of Gordon Ramsay, as he is, as I am now, I'm telling you that you're doing something wrong, that you are fucking up, and doing so in a way that is mystifying to me. I just can't understand how we've reached this point. But we have to just acknowledge that we are there, and that maybe somebody needs to step away so that somebody more competent can come in. There is the problem of the donors, and I'm sure everyone's going to say that in the comment section. I'm not even disagreeing with you, but I reiterate that not every element of this tweet boils down to the donor base. That simply is not true. Part of this tweet, and part of one of the problems with the GOP, is the intelligentsia. They are out of fucking ideas, and so they are just straight up lifting them from the left wing. When on the right, it is not a popular position. And it's not productive for the party, because if you're dealing with somebody who's questioning whether they want to join the GOP or not, stay independent, go elsewhere, go to libertarians, they're not sure, they're unaffiliated, they're thinking, they're looking at the GOP. When you put this kind of shit out, why wouldn't they just vote for the Democrats? Do you think it really matters as it relates to legal versus illegal when you're saying up front that immigration itself, not legal/illegal, immigration, as you stated, is intrinsically moral and positive? That it is beneficial just inherently. When that is what you're saying, why wouldn't they go with the left, who says that, and they believe it? Why would they go with us rather than them, when we cannot say this with authenticity or sincerity? We can't. No one does on our side. But on their side, they do. Why would you ever do this? Why would you ever say this? The harder you think about it, the bigger deal it actually is. The bigger problem it actually exposes. And, I'm not telling you that the GOP does not have problems. I'm not telling you that this isn't going to take quite a while to solve. But the fact is while we have actual arguments, our side, we have arguments, we have beliefs, we have ideals that in many ways reflect the ideals and the desires of the base itself, this does not represent anyone other than maybe donors who don't even believe this, who don't care. Their only interest is cheap labor, and it has always been that same interest. Did you see a lot of fucking corporations complaining about women entering the workplace? Maybe some fucking, good old boys in the corporate boardroom, but corporations themselves. Did you see a lot of them complaining about women entering the workplace when you've just doubled the labor pool? It helped them. It was beneficial for the corpos. When it comes to immigration, it is beneficial to the corpos. Employments, hiring, staff, labor. It represents an incredible proportion of cost in terms of operating. So when you can minimize that using simply this one function, and when you have things like the minimum wage laws, where Amazon is in full support of raising the minimum wage, it's like, why do you think that is? Why do you think one of the largest corporations in the fucking world actively supports raising the minimum wage, that they're trying to spur on the government to raise the minimum wage? Well, it's because it's in their direct interest. They already pay those wages, and it puts out all their competitors even more. It's not even to say that, like, oh, you can't make an argument towards minimum wage, but it's like, listen, I guess I'll just drop that topic, because it's like, it's so frustrating seeing this kind of thing. Where is anyone reflecting on this? Is anyone thinking about these things? Does anyone want the right wing to win? Does anyone? Am I alone? Is it just me and like a handful of other people that want Republicans to win elections? Do we want to lose the House in 2022? Do we not want to beat, Harris or Biden in 2024? Are we just doomed to lose forever in perpetuity? Because no one within the apparatus of the GOP is thinking at all about what we're doing here, about what the strategy is. Are we like Biden in that we have dementia and we have no plan? Is that where we are? Is that how we are? Or do we kind of need to reassess what we're doing, what our ideals are, what our values are? You can't just fucking throw out some Bible quotes and some bullshit from whoever. Like whoever is represented on the right now in terms of like a grand figure for our party. The politicians our party likes. Who the fuck are they even now? It seems that the right wing at this point is quite rudderless. Before I end this commentary, I will say that I don't know how one becomes a GOP strategist, and the fact is I am no professional. I don't have a lot of experience in this sort of thing, but I am someone that has a curious mind, and I am thoughtful regarding what is said in terms of politics. Maybe not necessarily what I always say. I'm out here dropping N-bombs and all such a thing, so I'm not very careful in terms of my own language, but I am thoughtful about what I say are my beliefs. I try to make it distinct and straightforward so that you can understand what I believe. It's important that if I'm trying to be truthful and, in certain cases make an argument for you to believe what I believe, it's important that I'm easy to understand, that I'm articulate in what I'm saying. I might not be the best out there in terms of doing this, but I'm not a professional. And yet, I look at stuff like this and I say, are you really professional? You seem pretty goddamn incompetent to me. That's how this comes across. So if the GOP is hiring, I am currently available. You can bring me on. I'm not asking for a lot in terms of a per hour or a salary. Not asking that much. I don't really want to live in Washington, D.C. either, which might be a prerequisite. But if there is a job in my area, their GOP, maybe bring me on and I can give you some better ideas. I'm not arguing that what I'm saying is literal gospel. That, this is the scripture for what you need to be following. But I am saying that I have better ideas than what you're putting forward currently. And if you thought about it, you'd realize that yourself or yourselves. Please think about it, okay? For all of our sakes, just think about this a little bit more in the future. All right, thank you for listening.